Today, we're kind of pushing past the usual headlines, the big numbers about generosity, the endorsements. We're aiming for something, maybe more personal, the surprising origins of John Cena's charitable work.
Exactly. It's about where it all started.
Yeah, we're digging into a source that suggests his whole approach to philanthropy was basically shaped by one single, very local act of kindness. Totally away from the cameras.
That's a really key point here. The source we're using, Cena's Philanthropic Genesis,
Yeah.
Ohio Kindness and Quiet Heroism, it doesn't just list donations. It actually lays out a kind of philosophical path,
Yeah.
starting with this very intimate, almost instinctual good deed, and showing how that builds towards his larger charity work. And central to it all is this idea they label the quiet hero.
Okay, the quiet hero. Let's definitely unpack that. So our mission here is to sort of trace the DNA of this generosity. We want to see how this one possibly small-scale event became the internal blueprint for his much bigger public commitments. And we'll specifically connect this philosophy, the one rooted in Ohio, to his work with major groups like the Susan G. Komen Foundation.
Right.
So let's get into that Genesis moment first, the Ohio story. The text is careful to set the scene. We're talking Cena's early days, right?
Yeah.
Long before he was a global name. It's specifically set in Ohio.
Yes, and it frames the whole thing in a time where, impact wasn't about Twitter impressions or millions raised. It was literally about your neighbor.
Right, very grounded.
And what's really interesting is how specific the founding act is described. It wasn't like writing a check or making a donation. It describes this fictional act of saving a neighbor's farm, a farm that was struggling.
Saving a farm. Wow, okay.
Yeah, pure physical intervention. And crucially, the source adds this detail the farm needed saving during a storm.
During a storm?
Which completely changes the dynamic, doesn't it? It takes away any idea of planned charity. It makes it reactive.
Yeah.
Urgent. Necessary.
That storm detail feels really, really important to their whole argument then. It's foundational.
Absolutely.
It anchors the act not in, calculated benevolence or having extra money, but in crisis response, actual physical effort.
Immediate need.
Yeah, and it suggests maybe the purity of the action comes from that necessity, not how it looks.
Exactly. No time for PR.
So if you follow the source's thinking, even these huge global charity movements, the kind that tackle massive issues like Komen does with breast cancer awareness and research.
Right, huge scale.
They have to trace their roots back to this kind of specific local, mud on your boots kindness. Is that the idea?
That's the argument it's building. It creates this powerful contrast, The storm's chaos and danger highlight the urgency. And the heroism isn't about a photo op. It's about, literally stopping something from collapsing. It sets a precedent.
Yeah.
Real impact means getting involved when it's necessary, immediately.
Okay, so that's the initial seed. But the story doesn't stop there. Years go by after this farm incident. But the source says the memory stuck with him. And eventually it describes Cena returning to that same general area in Ohio. And this is where it gets really interesting for me, because the return wasn't some big celebrity homecoming tour, cutting a ribbon or something.
No, not at all. And the way he returned is key to understanding the motive, the philosophy behind it. The text is very specific. He returned incognito.
Incognito, so deliberately low-key.
More than low-key. It implies a conscious decision not to attach his famous name or face to whatever he was doing next. The idea was to continue the spirit of that first act, the selfless help, but without claiming any personal credit for it.
Okay, so that initial gesture, saving one farm in a crisis, it didn't just stay a memory, it evolved. How did that incognito return translate that spirit, that immediate reactive kindness, into something more lasting for the community?
Well, as source says, the physical result of that return was the establishment of a community center.
A community center, okay.
Think about the logic there, the translation. The first act, saving the farm, was about immediate disaster recovery during the storm.
Right.
Crisis intervention.
So the community center, presumably, wasn't just a general meeting place. It seems designed to kind of bottle that energy, to formalize the spirit of the storm rescue into something ongoing. It focused on things like local preparedness or skills or support systems, taking that emergency response model and making it sustainable, available day to day.
That makes a certain kind of sense, moving from just putting out fires to building like a fire station for the community.
Something like that, yeah. From crisis response to sustained local support.
But, in the world of big-time philanthropy, visibility is often king, isn't it? Funding often follows fame.
True.
Doesn't this incognito approach seem almost counterproductive if the goal is large-scale impact? Isn't the whole point of a celebrity getting involved to use their platform to raise way more money or awareness?
And that's the exact tension the source highlights.
Yeah.
It forces us to grapple with that paradox.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we connect this quiet community development back to the bigger picture, the text argues that this very private local model is actually the philosophical bridge to his huge, very public commitments.
So the quiet informs the loud.
That's the suggestion.
Yeah.
That the commitment to anonymity back in Ohio somehow shaped his approach, even when he later worked very publicly with giant organizations like Susan G. Komen, which, as you know, relies heavily on visible campaigns and global awareness.
Okay, that connection brings us right to the heart of it. This whole philosophy of quiet heroism. If the ultimate aim is scalable charity, like with Pullman, why does the source put so much emphasis on the need to be incognito, on deliberately dodging the spotlight in that middle step?
The text is unusually direct about the motive. It states explicitly that these actions, the return and the community center, weren't just about helping people. They were also specifically focused on keeping his ego in check.
Keeping his ego in check. Okay, that's a powerful claim.
It is. And that's where this quiet hero idea becomes less about the outward act and more about internal discipline. The source is essentially arguing that a good deed is only truly pure if it involves a kind of internal sacrifice for the giver specifically, giving up the credit, the recognition that comes so easily with celebrity.
So this raises a really important question, I think, for anyone in philanthropy, especially public figures. In our modern culture where transparency and, frankly, social proof often drive funding and success, is this quiet hero model actually practical for raising mass support?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Or is the source just painting an ideal picture, one that's maybe beautiful philosophically but hard to actually scale up?
Well, it's definitely presented as an ideal. The definition of quiet heroism that emerges from this story is basically true philanthropy means expanding that initial local kindness while actively fighting the urge for personal glory. You have to resist leveraging your celebrity status just for the sake of recognition.
So deliberately suppressing the public persona.
Yes. The text emphasizes that deliberate suppression as being crucial to the act's integrity. It's framing it as a choice. Purity of intent over the scale of recognition you might get otherwise.
Okay, so let's trace that arc again for the listener. We go from the specific physical crisis on a farm
During a storm, yes.
to establishing this quiet, ongoing community center done incognito.
Right, ego management focus there.
And then somehow that informs the massive, globally recognized work with an organization like Komen. What's the takeaway for us? What's the ultimate lesson here?
The ultimate lesson, according to this narrative structure, seems to be about foundational integrity, authenticity. The real measure of the giving wasn't the dollar amount or the press release, but the intent behind that initial localized effort.
The why matters more than the what.
Exactly. And the huge public space of charity, like the Komen advocacy, is presented as being valid because it's rooted in this fiercely private local commitment where ego is actively managed. The text implies that to have truly scalable compassion, you need genuine intent. And for a celebrity, genuine intent might require deliberately staying quiet about where it all started.
So that's the framework the source lays out. A journey defined by, almost paradoxically, anonymity right in the middle. From saving a storm-hit farm to building quiet community support, ultimately shaping a global commitment, a roadmap built on self-subtraction, maybe?
That's a good way to put it. Self-subtraction really forces you to reconsider the standard model. The source makes a compelling case that maybe the most potent form of charity starts by tackling immediate local needs, then expanding that template quietly without seeking credit, and only then applying that core philosophy to the bigger stage.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over after this deep dive. If the ultimate measure of a charitable act is the intent behind it, and if, as this source suggests, that intent needs protection through ego management, does the requirement to be a quiet hero potentially undermine the power of celebrity culture to drive necessary large-scale public awareness and action? Where do you draw that line between maintaining personal integrity and leveraging a platform for the greater good? Something to think about.